Finfera, and your baptismal name was Rosemary.
That's right.
And I have a new title for you, of course, is Madam Secretary of our esteemed congregation. So, Marie Joy, we're going to call, can I call you Joy?
Yes,
That's good.
please.
Maybe we could begin your journey where you began your journey with your home, your family, your siblings.
Okay. My parents, my father is pure Czechoslovakian. My mother is pure German, two very stubborn nationalities. So both of them were Americans. They were born in this country and met each other in Toledo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and moved out to the farm, and I came. So that's a quick...
You grew up on a farm.
I grew up on a farm for 18 years, yes.
So that's where this cooking and the
Maybe.
vegetable, okay.
Probably the gardening comes from there, because we always had a large garden. And as one of my cousins would say, if we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. So, right, it was a small farm, 60 acres, but we had chickens, pigs, cows at one point. Again, looking back at my history and my past, my parents had the farm. My father also worked in the factory, because you can't raise a family on 60 acres. Then he got a full-time job with the Ohio State Employment Service in Wauseon. And from then on, he no longer did the farming. My uncle did the farming, but we lived on the farm. It was ours. So in addition to that, my parents had chickens. They sold eggs at the house. They, in the springtime, sold seed corn to the farmers to plant in the fields. They had pigs and sold those. They had cows and sold the milk. So they were involved in lots of different things, and several different adventures to subsidize income for the family.
So what were your chores growing up?
Mostly feeding chickens, feeding pigs, pulling the weeds, mowing the lawn,
Okay.
cleaning the eggs. I cleaned when I was about 10. I somehow persuaded my parents to pay me to clean the eggs, and I got a penny a dozen.
A penny a dozen. Now you had to clean the eggs.
Yes. When they come from the chickens, they're not always clean.
They're not always clean. Yeah. We had relatives on a farm, so I think.
Yes, that's the reality. They don't come in little cartons like in the store.
They don't just plunk them into the little cartons. Okay,
No.
there's a little work.
No.
So your mom was very involved in that as well.
Right. She was, yes, she did not work on the farm, but the garden was totally hers. She was, because she was home during the day, she sold the seed corn to the farmers when they came. She placed the orders with my dad. Yes, she was very involved.
So, do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother who's younger than I.
Okay. And he lives in?
He now lives in Maumee.
Okay. Okay. And schooling, where did you go to school?
I went to school at St. Mary's Assumption and in Swanton.
And we were there.
We were there.
We were there.
And Pat McGrath, Sister Anne Maureen, was my first grade teacher. So I thought she was just wonderful and beautiful. And
Did she teach you how to sew?
No, not in first grade. But I remember she was very tall and very thin. And then I would try to dress up. I would make myself habits by pinning pieces of fabric around me like a nun would. And then I would play school.
Okay. But you had to have the habit on.
Oh, yeah, and a veil.
So there was a high school there too?
Yes, it was 12 grades. It was a parish school.
Okay.
Small, but yeah, parish school. And I went through high school there. The high school didn't close until about 3 years after I left.
So that's how you basically met the Adrians and were inspired by the Adrians?
Yes, I loved them all. Some more than others. But
Right. Yeah, we kind of have, put them all in sainthood, but I know they were not all. Yeah, and joyful and happy and kind and loving and, yeah. And then the reality. So that's, from watching them, they were great models for you. So then that's what got you interested in convent?
Right, they were, as many people have explained in their stories or in their autobiographies. They were happy. They always treated us well. They were very respectful. They were very motivating. Yes, there was just something about them. I can't. That's where the mystery comes in, because I can't explain
No, that's good.
what attracted, like specifically. Those are externals that you kind of attribute to the attraction, but there was something else that was there that's intangible.
And your vocation, your calling, your invitation, so to speak, I always say begins with our family.
Oh, sure.
Seriously, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
My parents weren't, they were very, what I would call good Catholics. They were not overly serious about religion. We didn't go to daily Mass because we lived 10 miles from church. But Sunday Mass, I mean, you really had to be pretty sick to miss Mass.
Exactly.
And other Lenten devotions, things like that, and adhering to the precepts of the church. They just were always good examples. I remember my father kneeling by the bed saying his night prayers and things like that. We didn't say the family rosary, which always frustrated me very much.
That you didn't?
Yes, because I always thought we should. I was like the good Catholic kid, and I thought we should because the sisters said we should. But my parents weren't always gung-ho about that.
Okay, interesting. Those of us that had family rosary wished we didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure. Change places.
So when did you enter?
I entered after high school, after my senior year. I was 17. Uneventful. My parents were pleased. I had no objection from them.
And so you entered with a gigantic crowd.
We had 122, I think, yes.
I know.
One of many. And I loved formation. We had the best in terms of formation directors. Ruth Steiner, Rosemary Ferguson, Margaret Lane, they were just the best. So my formation, first of all, I always looked forward to entering, and I was excited and could hardly wait to get here when the day came. Had a hard time understanding girls that would say, oh, they waited till the last minute to come. I was like, I wanted to be first. I just couldn't wait. But formation was always a good experience, and I have good memories of that. I don't have negative memories of formation.
So you were one of the crowds that you still were named. You got
Oh,
a
yes.
religious name.
Right.
Now your religious name is Marie Joy. How did you get that, or was it given to you, or?
My parents were Mary and Joseph. Trying to find a combination of those two was just impossible. And then my mother was often called Elizabeth, so I tried that combination. And originally I wanted Joseph Elise.
Oh, there was one.
But there's a Joseph Eilis, and I was told that would be too close. That would be confusion. So I gave up on the parents thing. And when I was in high school, I remembered we had a Sister Marie Joy who came and taught primary grades. And somehow that stuck in my mind, and I thought, well, I could do Marie, and that shouldn't be too confusing. And that stuck. And the joy of being Dominican, I made up some good explanation when you have to give the reasons. I made up something good.
And we were given the option to return to your baptismal name. You didn't want to go back to Rosemary.
No. Joy is, by that time, everyone knew me as Joy.
Yeah.
It's short, easy to spell. Even my family calls me Joy.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Now, you entered, and did you go out and mission? Was it around 67 that you got missioned out? Or?
Yes, because we spent a year studying after we were really fortunate for that. We were blessed with that. And so I taught primary grades for 6 years in Dearborn Heights and Miami. And then I was invited to be the secretary of the provincial chapter in West Palm Beach.
Oh, okay, I forgot about that one. That's
So
right.
then I moved into secretarial, administrative assistant type work. After 6 years there, then I moved on. We were in open placement by that time, and I applied for a job in Richmond, Virginia as the executive secretary to the assistant executive director. So I did that for 2 years, and then this was a large campus. It was a multi-social service campus. They had a conference center on the campus. And after 2 years as secretary, I was invited to be the director of the conference center. So I moved into that role, which basically turned out to be running a restaurant and a hotel.
Yeah,
We didn't do program, but we welcomed groups. And,
that's a great ministry.
Yes, you meet some
Yeah,
great people and have
you
some
do.
really unique experiences. After that, after 6 years of that, the administration of the place, of the villa, decided they had an offer from someone who would finance a housing program for women and children who were homeless. So they took those buildings and made them into a new program, which meant I was out of a job, but at the same time, they offered me a position to create the Human Resources Office in that facility. So I became their first director of Human Resources. At that point, typically, I knew nothing about human resources, but it's Adrian Dominican to do it
learn.
first and learn later,
Yeah.
so
In process.
in process. So I went to Virginia Commonwealth University and I started taking classes. And I started out, the closest I could get to human resources was public administration. So I took a couple of classes in public administration.
Wow.
And then I think one night I went to my class and the woman sitting next to me, we started talking and she said that this is her last class and she's going to graduate. I said, oh, that's great. I mean, to me, graduation was so far into the future because I had the bachelor's degree, but no master's. So we were talking about that, and I said, well, what is your degree in public administration? Oh, no, she said, I'm getting this new degree. It was called Interdisciplinary Studies. And the university had created this new program where you could, in a sense, put together your own degree program.
Nice, perfect. Yeah.
So she gave me the name of the advisor. I went to him. He gave me the book and said, pick out the classes you want to take. You have to take a chunk of classes. Essentially would be like you have to take enough classes to have a major and a minor.
Yeah.
And I took the book home. I picked out the classes. I went back to him. It worked. And 5 years later, I had a degree in interdisciplinary studies in training and personnel management.
Wonderful.
So it worked very well for me because while I was taking the classes and learning it, I was working it.
Right.
And I would go to work and we would be in a discussion or meeting and I would think, oh, I don't know much about that area. So that would be a paper, topic for a paper.
Smart. Uh-huh.
And I would go to class and the instructor would say, you need this many papers, presentations, projects. So I'd go to work and the projects would
wonderful,
present
Joy.
themselves.
Yeah, uh-huh.
They did. So it worked very well. It was like a hand in glove experience for me. I was using what I was learning immediately. And I was picking out the areas I needed to learn more about, researching them for my work at school.
And that degree has served you well.
It served me very well for about 15 years.
And then how'd you get to California?
Um,
Been all over.
Well, from Virginia, I then accepted a job with the Franciscan Sisters in La Crosse, worked for them for 3.5 years, and then I was invited to the hospital in California to work in human resources.
Oh,
From the hospital, I went across the street to the Oaks, yes, because they didn't really have anyone in human resources there. The hospital had a whole staff. So I was the human horses person at the Oaks.
Had it just opened at that time?
Oh, no,
Or
it
had
had
been?
been open for several years at that point. So then after 6 years, I came back. So I completed my circle back to Adrian.
And then you were in some administrative
Well,
positions here.
Mary Sue Kennedy called me one day and asked if I would be interested in being the administrative assistant of the Adrian Crossroads chapter. And my mother had been aging. She was, I think she was just a little past 90 at that point. And I knew I needed to be closer because my brother was basically taking on all the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I was very glad for that invitation.
So that's good. So then now you
Now here I am.
are of service, always of service. And you know that position of an administrative assistant, you make whoever you're working for look good. And a lot of your work is behind the scenes, but it's key to the position that you're
Exactly.
helping. And it's wonderful. And I'm sure that our council and our leadership council realize that with what you're involved in now. What's the hardest thing about your position now as secretary of the congregation?
The hardest thing is, as I say sometimes to people, I'm the only animal like me in the barn.
Right, right.
I don't belong to anyone.
No.
So I am not an elected leader. I am not on the general council. And in a way, I don't quite feel anymore like a grassroots either, because people often think I know more than I do. So I think sometimes it enters into the conversation. Someone will say something and say, oh, well, you probably already know about that. So it kind of gets aborted. I don't get to participate in much gossip that way.
Well, I think the position, though, you hold a lot of information. I used to talk about this with Rose Celeste. That's very confidential.
You do.
You can't just go to the office and share it with, Sister Mary Holywater or one of the other assistants that you have there.
Exactly.
So you have to hold a lot of things
Yes.
inside. And I think that's why we present ourselves to you as.
Probably.
As secretary of the congregation, perhaps for those that are watching this that aren't familiar, what are some of the duties that you have, or some of the responsibilities that you have as secretary of this large congregation?
The major piece is minutes, meetings and minutes. If we did away with meetings and minutes, I could go half-time. As being in the meetings, and then the time that it takes to finish the minutes is more than you would think. Because it's taking down, I take shorthand, so it's transcribing it, and then making it sound nice, because I can't write exactly what people say,
No.
even though I write it in shorthand. When we talk, we don't want the way we express ourselves, we don't want it put on paper for posterity.
That's right, and some of the things we say at those meetings, we don't want to.
Well, some of those things don't go down,
Yeah.
right? But and many times we use terms, we're very casual when we speak to each other. So we know what the other person means, but you don't want it in writing. So it takes more time to polish off the minutes so that they're professional and
And then
looking
you
good.
have the leadership council, which is 3 times a year, maybe 2.5 because you have the retreat, but half of it's
Right,
business.
right.
So that's 5 or 6 days of minutes.
Yes,
And
that
then you
is
have
long.
council meetings, the general council meetings, and that's sometimes 3 or 4 days, all day, and
Yes.
that's minutes.
Yes, lots of minutes. So that's the biggest chunk. The rest of it is odds and ends, a variety of things, which keeps it interesting. The variety saves me, because I don't
Yes,
think I would
yes.
want to do only the minutes piece.
Right, right. And you have a great staff up there.
I have a fabulous
Right,
staff up there.
wonderful.
Yes, they are
And
excellent.
who are the people that assist you in that office?
Joan Sestersic, Jan Berg. They do a lot of the day-to-day nitty-gritty and support me. They take good care of me. In the history department is Arlene Bakanoff and Jean Tobin. Now, they are very supportive as well because a lot of written materials come out of that office in terms of autobiographies, obituaries. So I rely on them to proof those and to do,
right.
and the accuracy, the writing of it, etc. Sometimes sisters, when they died, their files contained 3 or 4 or maybe 5 versions of their autobiography.
Right.
And so those 2 women help pull it together into one script
okay.
that contains everything. And then in archives is Beverly Babola and Lisa Schell, who are phenomenal in the amount of work that they handle and accomplish. And Lisa, of course, is a professionally trained archivist, so she speaks the language and understands how our archives should be organized and is doing that. And then
And have they been organized okay? I mean, I'm
we've done very well. We've done very well, yes. And then we also have Teresa Horn and Carol Bolin. And they're very behind the scenes, but the work that they do is invaluable in terms of tracking and organizing all of the information about ourselves and our women. So they are, they amaze me. They also speak their own language.
Right,
They
right.
speak data.
Oh, right, different animal for sure.
Yeah.
So now, aside from all of that business bit, what do you do for fun? For those that don't know.
Oh, well, I like gardening.
Yeah.
That's relaxing for me. And I actually enjoy the card making, although I haven't gotten to it very much. Sometimes in the past, the jam making and the candy making have been fun, but now they're getting to be harder to find. It's harder to find the time to do those things. This job takes more time and energy, so that when I get home, I just often don't have the energy to do them. But for relaxing, the gardening, I like to read. I have a subscription to Netflix, so, fun movies. Those are probably the most, I just enjoy being a homebody, putzing.
With your little friend.
And my little friend, Callie.
Callie, okay. Anything else that you'd like to share with us about?
I think you've
About
done a
you?
good job covering things.
And so you have enough that gives you energy and passion to get up every day?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
most days.
Yeah, you're very
Right.
busy. And the personnel that you have too, they're delightful. I mean, they're so accommodating. Really, we're blessed with all the coworkers.
We are.
Yeah.
In fact, just yesterday I walked through at 5:15 it was, and as I'm walking, everybody's still at her desk. And I said, there is a blatant disregard for quitting time around here. I think they're trying to get things done, put closure on whatever task they're doing. I understand that because I do it too. But very
what I was gonna
often
say.
they do not run out at 5.
Joy, I wonder, what do you model for them?
I'm a bad model.
Just going to say,
You're a bad
I bet
model.
you the other day, was it 6:15 at night?
Yes, I'm not good.
Yeah.
But I would rather stay and get things finished than feel the anxiousness of not being prepared.
Right. Well, in the name of the congregation, all of us, we thank you for your service, your unending service to us, and the position that you now have. Because what you do for our leadership, it comes back to us, and all of that, and that's very important.
It's a service position.
It's a service, but it's you're unending and you're very faithful. So I thank you for your service to us.
You're most welcome. It's an honor to be in it.
And just model better for your staff how to end the day.
I'll work on that,
Yeah.
sister.
Okay. Well, thank you.